Hello and welcome. My name is Yarina Vovk. I am a Ukrainian writer and the author of psychological crime thrillers. In my novels, I explore the psychology of serial killers, the criminal profiling, and the workings of the human brain. And today I'm very excited to speak with you, Simon, with one of the most celebrated crime authors all over the world, the creator of the Девіда Гантера series. Your books have been published in KSD Publishing, the same as mine, and your books have gained a large readership in Ukraine. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be asked.
Joining me today also is someone without whom Ukrainian readers would never experience the Девіда Гантера series in quite the same way. This is Євгенія Канчура, as a long-time translator of your books, the Девіда Гантера series particularly, and a lecturer at Житомир Polytechnic State University. Eugenia, we are delighted to have you with us today as well.
Thank you, Irina. Simon, this is really a great opportunity for me. I was maybe dreaming about this meeting for the whole years which I was working with your novels. This conversation is particularly meaningful for me because I was working with your novels during the Great War, and they was really a great support for me and actually for my family situation. So a significant part of my professional life has been connected with your books and your characters. That's why I'm especially pleased to finally have the opportunity to speak with the author whose stories I have spent so much time with. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you again, and thank you. I'm touched to hear that, and I'm glad my books helped you even in a small way. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start with the first questions that we prepared for you. First of all, I read 3 of your books, and your novels are remarkable for great attention to the smallest details of criminal investigation and forensic science. In one of your recent interviews, which I found on YouTube, you said that you carefully plan and outline your stories in advance. So the first question, how much time do you usually spend for research and gathering information before starting writing a novel? And finally, which part you like most, the searching, gathering information, or the writing itself?
It's hard to differentiate the two. I enjoy the writing, but particularly for the David Hunter novels, it's the research is very important, obviously. And it is very satisfying when you come across a piece of research and you realise it will work very nicely in a story. It doesn't always work out. I've had there was one of the David Hunter novels, and I'll not say which one it was, but I had to rethink the entire plot because one of the forensic details I'd been hoping would work out actually didn't. And I tend to do some research beforehand just to make sure that the basic idea is feasible. But then it continues all the time I'm writing the books, because although I plan as much as I can in advance, I think like a lot of novelists, it changes as you're writing, and the ideas that you have don't always play out on the page or on the screen as the work evolves. So there's constantly research that's going on. I'm constantly getting in touch with real-life experts, police officers, that sort of things, just to check what would happen in a certain situation. So it's hard to say, what the split is, because it's so involved in it. It's the David Hunter novels. The research is essential for them, really. But at the same time, it has to be part of the story. It can't overtake the story. It has to just support the story. And as we were saying earlier, support the characterization and the psychology of the characters rather than taking over.
Yeah, it's really very interesting what you are saying about different consulting with experts. And over the years, you have worked with a wide range of experts, pathologists, forensic anthropologists, detectives, crime scene investigators, journalists as well, yes? and many others. And which of these professionals has influenced your understanding of crime and human nature the most? And maybe have you ever attended a real crime scene investigation, spent time in forensic laboratories, or accompanied specialists in their day-to-day work? So did you stay close to them?
I've never attended an actual crime scene, and I probably wouldn't now, because I'm conscious what I'm writing is fiction, and I like to keep a distinction. I tell stories that hopefully people will entertain and find thought-provoking, but it is still invented. That said, I do consult closely with forensic experts, and for the David Hunter novels, then forensic anthropology is the main string, I suppose, to that side of things. So I did once visit, which is where the ideas of the David Hunter novels came from. The body, what's known as the Body Farm in Tennessee. I was a journalist myself at the time, and I went along there when at the time it was the only research facility in the world that used real human cadavers, real human bodies, to research decomposition. And it was a complete eye-opener for me. I wrote a magazine article about it, and I came away and wanted to pursue that in a novel. But seeing that sort of thing was it changed my attitude in a lot of respects. But in terms of actually wanting to go to a real crime scene, I think I'll leave that to the actual experts.
Do you still consult with these specialists from anthropology research facility in Tennessee, or currently no, writing your novels now?
I'm still in touch with them, which is great. I think because David Hunter's in the UK, the law and approaches tend to differ slightly in the US to the UK. So I'm more in touch in terms of helping with the books with British forensic anthropologists and forensic experts, because they work with British police, so it applies more directly to what David Hunter's doing. But certainly for the third David Hunter novel, Whispers of the Dead, which took place in Tennessee at the Body Farm research facility, then they were very helpful with writing that.
As a fellow writer who also works with themes of serial killers and criminal psychology, I have one question that has always interested me, as you are also the writer that writes detective novels and thrillers. In popular culture, there are a lot of different stereotypes about serial killers that repeats from film to film, from book to book, and even in detective novels. So what is maybe the biggest misconception for you about serial killers that you often see in these popular culture attributes?
Well, I have to say I'm not an expert, so but I would imagine that the sort of the creativity, and that some of them have some of them go to great lengths for staging things, and I think there's a lot more dramatic license, I think, that comes into the fictional portrayal of serial killers. I think maybe they are to some extent romanticized. I'm not.
Agree.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Agree. 100% agree.
Okay. So yes, and I think that is something, and I think in the real world they're probably a different animal altogether to the way they're often portrayed in fiction.
Looking back at all of your books, which skin was emotionally difficult for you to write, and why? Maybe David Hunter's series, maybe some other book.
Oh, good question. Sometimes, if I found a scene was going to be too difficult for me to write and too upsetting, then I probably wouldn't write it. I would probably avoid that, because the readers might feel the same way, and I don't want to put myself through something as a writer that could potentially upset people too much on the page. And I think the other thing is, as the novelist, and I don't know if you find this as well, because you're in control of what's going on, you can pull back if things are, you're finding things too upsetting. You do want to provoke an emotional response in readers. As a reader, I enjoy reading a book that provokes an emotional response in me, but I think there's a fine line between overdoing it too much. And I hope I've stayed on the right side of that, but other people can, have their own opinions on that. I don't think there's any one scene I can think of that has upset me or that I've found overwhelming in any way.
Maybe when David Hunter was wounded, no?
Sadly not, no. I mean,
No?
I enjoyed writing that, I have to admit. It sounds cruel. But I knew what was going to happen. I also knew, I thought I was taking a risk ending a book in that way. I hoped it would work, but I thought if it did work, then it could be very effective and readers would enjoy it. And it seemed the right way to end the book at that stage. And so it was something as a lot of these scenes are, and again, I don't know how you find this, you can have a scene in mind and you're looking forward to writing because you know it's going to be a really pivotal, important scene. So it sounds bad to say I was looking forward to writing about something like that happening to one of my characters, particularly the main character. But at the same time, yes, I was anticipating that one because I thought it could be quite effective.
Speaking about David Hunter, if we are talking about him, as a writer myself, I'm often asked by readers whether the protagonist is in some way a reflection of the author. Do you think that you may have unconsciously woven some of your own personality traits in David Hunter, or maybe he was inspired by somebody else?
He wasn't inspired by a real person at all. I wouldn't do that. I think that could be quite dangerous. He's a fictional character, but it was important for me to make him very credible. I didn't want him to be an action hero type character. I wanted him to be somebody who was human, in as much as he makes mistakes, he regrets things, he second guesses himself, he suffers uncertainty and all the rest of it. And I think in that respect, that I think potentially strikes a chord with a lot of people. Certainly I feel some of those emotions myself, but I didn't consciously style him on myself. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to make him a proxy for me on the page. Unconsciously, obviously, if it happened unconsciously, then I might not realise it. Nobody who I know has actually said to me, I'm like David Hunter. So I don't think so. But I don't think so.
You prepared for David Hunter a very hard life, especially his personal life. And the readers, our Ukrainian readers, are very interested. Will David Hunter ever happy in his personal life? And they are much care about him. How do you explain such a strong emotional connection between a character which is fictional, which is not real, and reader?
I think that's the author's job, really, to try and do that, to try and create these characters. And again, I'm sure you do this yourself. You want a character and characters who readers care about and who they can sympathise with and empathise with, and really feel for them. So that way, if they're going through a bad time in the book, the readers are feeling that as well, and going through that same sort of emotional journey and emotional turmoil. And I think that's an important point of writing a book, to try and I say try and get these connections with readers, that you can draw them into the story. So you're creating a world and characters that's away from the real world, where people can lose themselves for a little bit. But while you're reading it, it seems that these characters are real, and you can invest emotionally in them.
Yes, I always say you must feel the character this way, that you can go to the bar and meet him here. He must be so real for me as a reader and for me as a writer. And but tell us, maybe David Hunter will be ever happy in his personal life. We want him to have a healthy, normal relationship. We want him to be happy at least once in his life, because he always has some problems with it. Is there a chance?
There's always a chance. There's always a chance, but so never say never. But I think David Hunter, like all of us, his life has ups and downs, and it's certainly writing him. It makes it interesting for me as well to see him how he deals with these peaks and troughs during his life. But yes, there's always a chance.
You answered, but you didn't answer.
We will pass it to our readers because they are also very, very worried about him. Yes.
I'm sure he'll be okay.
Thank you. David Hunter, quite an interesting character. He often finds himself caught between professional rules and his own sense of justice. And how do you balance between his scientific objectivity and professionalism with his very human capacity for empathy and compassion?
I think that's an important part of David Hunter's character. And I think that's what in the books makes him as good as he is, because he, because of the tragedies you mentioned earlier in his personal life, it's made him more aware of the human cost of what he's working with. So the balance for him is he wants to be as objective and clinical as he can when he's viewing a crime scene and to try and keep himself separate, but he still finds that very difficult and finds himself drawn into an involvement with these characters and with the victims. And it's not something he personally finds easy, but I think it makes him a stronger character. And I think in this fictional world, it gives him additional insight to his work and makes him better at what he does.
Thank you. And then my next question is connected with the previous one, because one of the most memorable and tragic antagonists in the series appears in Written in Bone. And what always struck me while translating the novel was that Hunter's reaction to her seems far more complex than simple fear or hatred. He understands the suffering that shaped her and appears to carry the memory of that encounter long afterwards. Do you think that experience continues to influence Hunter emotionally in the later books? And could it be one of the reasons why his later relationship proved so difficult?
Yes, I think that's probably true. I think there's a traumatic scene in Written in Bone, and what I didn't want to do was, and again, it's a balance, it's a fine line. I've read some novels, and some of them are great, but characters shrug off awful trauma and it's gone, and then they move on to the next, and then something else awful happens, and then by the next book it's gone. And I wanted there to be a sense that this was a real person living real life, the experiences of which carries on with him, and so it was a fine line again of trying to find a way for him to continue with that one and for him to be a part of him without him constantly referring to them all the time. So it's if you like, it's baggage that he's carrying with him throughout the books, but sometimes it surfaces more than others, and sometimes it affects him. And I think, like most of us, sometimes you can carry on and unpleasant events will take more of a back seat, and then something happens to bring them to the surface again. So I suppose to a large extent, or to some extent, I was trying to do that in the books as well. So it's there in the background, and sometimes it comes up to the surface again, but it never goes away from completely.
Thank you. It's really a very deep emotional aspect of the whole series of novels. And in my opinion, David Hunter is a kind of modern knight, chevalier sans peur et sans reproche, someone who is willing to go against instructions and establishes procedures when he believes it is morally or the right thing to do. All that is just simply a consequence of extraordinary situation he repeatedly finds himself in. He is so often told not to do something, but he does. And he has to make his decisions very fast, very quickly. So where is this balance again between following the instructions and following the emotional and moral compass?
I think Hunter is a character who will always end up following his own moral compass, because he would find it difficult to live with himself if not. And I think it's something he doesn't always find easy, and sometimes it does come back and have repercussions on him, often professionally. But he feels, he's got a very strong moral compass, and for better or worse, he usually ends up following that. I'm trying to think. I can't think of any occasions when he hasn't. But I think he's come to learn to trust his own judgment in that, and even if he knows it's going to cause problems, then I think he ultimately feels then that's what he has to do. I don't feel he does it in a noble way. I think he can probably he will worry about it at the same time, but ultimately he feels that that's what he needs to do.
Thank you. And one of the things I admire most about your novels is their atmosphere. Each book has its own distinct mood, and that mood is often inspirable by the landscapes in which the story unfolds. From Dartmoor to remote marshlands and coastal communities. So although many of the villages and settlements in your novels are fictional, the landscapes themselves feel remarkably authentic. How do you choose the settings for your books? Do they emerge from places you have personally visited, places you have reached extensively, or a combination of both? What is it about this landscape that makes them so perfect setting for David Hunter investigations?
I spend a lot of time deciding where the books are going to be set, and the locations are as you say, they're a big part of that. And until I can actually visualize where it's going to be taking place, I find it very difficult to actually write the story. So I have to be able to see it in my mind's eye before I can actually start writing, or certainly get very far with it.
Do you draw a sort of a map or something?
I've drawn things out once or twice, not of a large map, but just of a small area, just to get the geography clear in my mind, because I want to be able to describe it without having to think about it. And again, in order to do that, I have to be able to sort of refer to it quite clearly. And very occasionally, I do sort of do a little visual. A map is probably too strong a word, but it's just for me to get the relationship where one thing is in relation to another. But what I don't like to do in the descriptions of the descriptions of the characters as well, really, but certainly with the landscapes, I don't want to describe them too fully. I like to give enough detail so readers can create their own impression of this and visualise it themselves, rather than trying to picture exactly. Excuse me. Sorry, that was an alarm on my phone. I beg your pardon. I want readers to be able to visualise them without feeling that they've got to try and follow my detailed instructions of how everything is. So it's a little bit of both, really. It's trying to create enough of an atmosphere, I suppose, with a few details that help people picture it themselves. Sorry, I think you also asked, do I go to these places as well? Sorry, I got distracted from that. Often they are based on places I have been to. And sometimes I will go back and do more research and then examine these places more fully. But usually they're a combination of places, often different places I've been to that work for the story. So the main thing is that they work for the story rather than they're exactly the same as a real life physical counterpart, a geographical counterpart that exists somewhere.
Thank you very much. It is really a great deal of understanding of how your novels work. And another aspect about atmosphere and mood is that fascinated me as a translator is the role of music. In Whispers of the Dead, music plays a surprisingly important role. One of the characters is an enthusiastic jazz lover, and throughout the novel there are numerous references to jazz recordings and musicians from 1950s and 60s. While translating the book, I became so intrigued by these references that I created a playlist and listened to music myself. And then, by the way, I added this playlist to the Ukrainian publication. So it's the only thing when they had a preface from the translator. Yeah, for people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, really, for people who wanted to feel the same atmosphere, the same playlist, what David Hunter and his friends experienced. And It added an
thank you.
entire, yeah, thank you. I'm happy you like this idea. And it added an entirely new dimension to the reading experience and helped me to understand the atmosphere of the novel. And that is just an American atmosphere, right? So how do you choose these particular pieces of music? Were they personal favorites, or were they selected because they reflected certain themes or moments in the story, or were they primarily intended to help shape the character? So
occasionally, I suppose a personal preference might creep in, but generally it's more to shape the character. There were, you know, in Whispers of the Dead, it was music that I was aware of and that I knew and did like, but it struck me that this would suit the character. So that was done very much to suit that. And occasionally there are some scenes in the books where a piece of music will be playing when, you know, David Hunter goes into a room or a building or whatever. And I generally pick those because I think, well, that would help create some sort of, it either creates the right sort of mood or it's jarringly out of place, which in itself can also be very useful to bounce off, you know. But so it's to support really what's going on in either the scene or with the characters.
thank you. And another my question is connected with pets. You know, I'm muting my phone all the time because my dog is here and I'm afraid he starts barking and interrupts our interview. And so I'm really a dog lover, but I also love cats. And while working on David Hunter series, I noticed that dogs seem to play a much more prominent role in these novels, whereas in some of your standalone books, such as The Lost or Where There's Smoke, cats tend to leave the strong impression. Is there any particular pattern behind that? And to what extent do your own feelings about animals influence the way they appear in your fiction? I also noticed that the breeds seem to change over time. I myself have a Yorkie. He is quite small but very loud. Border Collies appear in some of the earlier novels, while Labradors seems to feature more often in later books. Does that reflect your own personal preferences in any way? So do you have a dog, actually?
No, I grew up having dogs. We had a dog when I was young, and then had another when I was older. So I do like dogs. I do like cats as well. I wasn't aware of a change in them, so no, that wasn't something I was aware of. But I will I will have a think about that. Actually, I think, as you yourself know, animals and pets are so people respond to them, and I think again, as a writer, I do want to, you know, I think they can add to a story, add to characters. It's how characters react to the animals as well, which I think can be quite instructive as well. I hadn't actually thought about the fact that there's more dogs in the David Hunter novels than there's just standalones where there's more cats, but maybe David Hunter's more of a dog person himself.
Oh, sorry, I'm a cat person once. So.
Maybe that's true. Yeah, right. And my doggy is always helping me to translate. Yeah. Also, you know, I'm a fantasy scholar that I notice some specific elements connected with myth and folklore. And your novels often contain subtle references to folklore and mythological or perhaps quasi-mythological imagery that remains the background of otherwise realistic crime narratives. For example, there are references to figures such as banshees in Scottish settings or pixies in Northern England. These elements seem less concerned while driving the plot and more with reflecting local culture and imagination. Why is it important for you to leave room for these folkloric motifs within otherwise realistic crime stories? I even noticed that you described some women like with elvish face. So is it a sort of common metaphor in your surroundings, or it's your personal attitude? So she really looks like an elf or something. So what is the connection with folklore and mythological imagery in your work?
I think sometimes the description with the elvish features, that can just be a way of giving the reader a shorthand aid to visualising a character. So, but the actual folklore elements, I grew up reading a lot of horror. When I grew up, I used to read a lot of horror fiction. I don't write horror, but I think a lot of particularly the atmosphere and the suspense that, you know, in the ghost stories and things I used to write, I think that sort of spilled over into the David Hunter novels, sometimes more than others. And I enjoy creating that sort of, that frisson of fear, and that there's something else going on that you can't entirely explain, which I think can help build an atmosphere. Folklore in a lot of the UK, it's part of the landscape. So it's almost like it's an inherent part of where you are. And because I'm wanting to create a sense of David Hunter goes to a different location each time, it can be part of, it's soaked into the stones, if you like. And it's sort of just, it's trying to tap into that and to bring that into the story as well.
Thank you so much for this. Folklore is a part of landscape. It's just exactly what I felt, what I was talking to the readers at the meetings devoted to your novels. Really, it's just exactly, I'm so happy that my guessings were that's right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and thank you as well for the translations. Yeah, thank you.
I'm doing my best.
Well, I appreciate it.
I wanted also to add that UK, United Kingdom, was my dream for a lot of years, and I especially for that opened the British visa several years ago and went to London. Then I went to London one more time, and then last year I went to Scotland, and I am so excited about this country that it's something extraordinary for me, and I'm very happy that I saw it in my own eyes. But speaking about your reading experience that you already a bit mentioned, that you read horror in a lot of years ago. So now, do you, or not now, but anyway, do you have any favorite detective and thriller authors? For example, for me, it's definitely you, John Esbo, Scandinavian author, and Tana French, Ireland. Are there writers who have particularly inspired you throughout the years? And are there any crime novels that you consider as masterpieces?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm actually rereading a John D. MacDonald novel at the moment. An American novelist. He wrote the book that it was called The Executioners, which it's now been serialized again on television as Cape Fear. And the attitudes are very much of the time, but as a novelist, and as a reader, I can still enjoy dipping into, it's a glimpse of another world now to a large extent, reading about things that's in the 1960s and 1970s. But I think he was good. In terms of contemporary writers, I tend not to read authors who are doing this similar sort of work to myself. I tend to keep clear of that. A writer I'm very much enjoying at the moment is Mick Herron, who does more. It's more on the modern spy type thing, but with a very different twist. I don't. I don't know if they're in Ukraine, but they're very popular in the UK, and there's a very good TV series as well. I'm struggling to think of anyone else. I'm very bad when I'm trying to think of names on the spot. But I think, crime-wise, I think I'll just leave it at those two for now. Yeah.
Very soon, your novel The Lost will be published in Ukrainian by KSD Publishing, the same as the David Hunter series. And could you tell us what makes this story special for you? What Ukrainian readers can expect from it? Of course, we will see that on the next book festival, everyone will buy this book because everyone likes your previous novels. But what makes this special for you?
When I wrote The Lost, I wanted to do something that was different to the David Hunter novels. Hopefully, with enough of the same elements that people who enjoy the David Hunters will enjoy The Lost as well. But it was important for me to have a different sort of character. And Jonah Colley is a lot more proactive than David Hunter. There are similarities like David Hunter. He does have a tragic element to his past, but that's much more of his current life as well. That's something that he's still trying to come to terms with in a lot of respects. He's a firearms officer at the start of the book, and he's drawn into a situation when somebody, a person from his past, contacts him again out of the blue and asks for help. And again, Jonah Colley, even though they didn't part on the best of terms, he feels he can't say no. He goes along to help, and things happen. So he's a very different character to David Hunter, as I say. He's more active because he's a serving police officer, so he can be more physical. And I enjoyed writing a character, and that allowed me to take a break from the forensics side of things. There's still quite a bit of research to do for it as well. But yes, I really hope that Ukrainian readers will like Jonah Colley and enjoy the story as well.
Oh, I'm sure they will. We will, everybody. Maybe a bit personal question that I will ask now, but it's from me personally. Are you satisfied with the way your journey as a writer has unfolded? Are you happy with that way how your writing career happens and continue to proceed?
I've been published, and I make a living from writing, and I'm here now talking to people in Ukraine about my books. Once upon a time, that would have been a fantasy. Time was where the idea of getting anything published at all just seemed impossible. And I've been doing this for a long time now, but I've never really lost that feeling of sometimes surprise and gratitude that people are actually enjoying my books. But it's something I never take for granted. So yes, I'm pleased with how it's gone. I mean, it's been terrific, but it's not something I ever take for granted. When
you started to dream about writing, from what age do you remember it? Because for me, it was something like 12 years old. Yeah. Yes, in childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, I was writing stories and enjoy writing stories as a kid. I did a picture degree. I went to college, to university, and I did an English degree that got creative writing in it. But then afterwards, I found I had nothing to write about for years. But it was always there, so I did a lot of other things. But even then, there was always that urge to write. Was always in the background, and yeah, eventually, inevitably, I came back to it.
In 2023, The Chemistry of Death received a television adaptation. It is also a dream for a lot of writers to see a book that has been adapted on TV screen. What was it for you? What did you feel when you see David Hunter is materialized on the screen?
It is strange. I mean, and it's great when it happens. It really is, and it is very strange. And I think the thing that I would take away from that, and advise anybody else in that situation, is it's going to be different. And I think for a long time I was hoping, an adaptation will be exactly the same as the books. It never can be, never will be. And it probably shouldn't be, because it wouldn't work like that. So I think you've got to accept it's a different entity to the books. It won't be entirely the same, but the books are still there, and hopefully it works. And, and I enjoyed the experience. It was good fun, and the people involved in it, the producers and the actors, it was, I don't have any complaints. It's not entirely the same as I would have, maybe liked the story, but I wrote the book, and the book's still there, and but so I have no complaints about it, and I think it was a nice experience.
Are there any news about another adaptation of your books, maybe, or you don't have any?
Not really. I know there are plans, and there's talk about various ones, and they're in different stages of development. But I just let them get on with that now, because it can take years, and it may well not happen anyway. And if it does, as with the chemistry of death, then it's great. but I need to get on writing books rather than worrying about the TV side of things, really. So it's possible, but I've not got any news at the moment.
Please, thank you.
Before I began working closely with your novels and engaging with readers, I imagine the typical David Hunter reader is someone with a professional interest in forensic science, biology, or criminal investigation. And by the way, I met some devoted readers who are biology or chemistry teachers, really. And that's why I was really happy that you have written it correctly and I have translated everything correctly. But over time, I discovered something quite different. Many of your readers are young people, especially young women, who are deeply invested in these books for reasons that go far beyond the scientific details of the investigation. And at the same time, they love them. And for example, one of my friends who even didn't know that I was a translator, and then she discovered it, she was deeply surprised. She said, "Oh, I started to treat the flies differently. I even did not imagine that flies are so important." Yeah, really. So this made me curious. How has meeting your readers over the years changed the way you think about people who read your books? And when you are writing, do you ever have a particular reader in mind? So do you have your ideal reader?
No, I think anybody who picks one of my books up and enjoys it is an ideal reader, as far as I'm concerned. No, I don't. And when I'm writing it, I try and write the best story I can that feels as compelling and as unpredictable as I can make it. I think if you start trying to write specifically for particular types of readers, then I think that might lead to problems. In my experience, the readers I've met and who've been in touch, it's a complete cross section. It's all different ages, different backgrounds, and male and female. It varies really, which I think is terrific.
We announced this interview. Our followers and your readers flooded us with different questions. So to finish, we would like to do a quick fire round on behalf of your Ukrainian readers. So short questions, short answers. Maybe you don't want to respond so short, it's not a problem, but if you want, that can be short. First question, which character from your books would you least like to meet in real life?
Jerome Monk.
Which of your characters annoys you the most as a writer?
Possibly David Hunter.
Funny and predictable.
As a writer, but he's also the most rewarding as well. So,
if David Hunter, which annoys you the most, could ask you one question, what do you think it would be?
Why do you give me such a hard time?
Yeah, I think he will ask this definitely. In one word, what lies ahead for David Hunter?
Mystery.
And last one, how many bodies are too many for one novel?
I've never counted, but I hope I would know if I came across it.
That's all from our readers, but mostly they were asking about David Hunter's personal life, and you already answered that there is a chance, but we don't know will he have this chance. Thank you, Simon, so much for this conversation, for sharing your time, for all of your answers, and of course for all of your books. As I already said several times, Ukrainian readers are really excited by books and are waiting for every new translation from Євгенія. So before we say goodbye, I'd like to ask you, or not to ask you, but maybe you want to say something, not to only us, but to all the Ukrainian readers in general.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I mean, I'm delighted and thrilled that my books are published in Ukraine. I'd like to thank all of them for reading them, and I think on a wider level, everybody in the UK is aware of what's happening over there now, and I'd just like to send my very best thoughts and wishes and support the Ukrainian people.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We
Thank you
really
both very
need
much.
support. I also would like to thank as well for this conversation. It has been a great privilege to work on the Ukrainian translation of your novels and to help your stories find readers in Ukraine. I hope Ukrainian readers will continue to enjoy new adventures with David Hunter. So everything which stands before him is mystery, but I would rather also say adventure. And many other characters you create. Thank you, and we wish you the inspiration for many more books to come.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.